Ubisoft, what the flip that patty fries in the baggie happened to you? You used to make fantastic games. What's wrong with you now? Dull and bored Assassin's Creed, same old Avatar, Frontiers of Bad, Dora. Can't you make a good game like Prince of Persia anymore? You did? Gamers, what the heckler Shylock the Sheckler is wrong with you? You wanted to play a good Ubisoft game, why didn't you play it? Me? What, do you think I'm gonna play a new Ubisoft game? Miss me with that shilling for a greedy corporation. No, I'm gonna play the good old Ubisoft games, from when the company was an industry darling, a golden child. You know how it's with golden children. They beat you, they taunt you, and even grandma, who you thought loved you equally, gotta make excuses for them. Oh, must have been an accident. Why you always gotta fight with your brother? Yes, me fighting with him. Always my fault. The golden child is perfect. But they really aren't, are they? Even when Ubisoft was winning hearts with Assassin's Creed 2 and Far Cry 2 and Rainbow Six Vegas 2, it wasn't perfect. One of its franchises wasn't doing too well. Prince of Persia got a reboot, and then the reboot got the boot. Well, I'm here to put my foot down on behalf of Prince of Persia 2008. With the end of the auspicious month of No Nut November, I'm going to defend this game with all the chi I've gathered through my abstinence. So, let's go. First, let me tell you something, cabron. There are a lot of games that fans wanted to see continued but didn't get the chance. Kingdoms of Amalur is a good one. Sleeping Dogs came as a big surprise. God and Made Me Come as a big surprise. There are underrated gems aplenty. But out of all the amazing games that were untimely destroyed, I choose the Prince of Persia reboot as my A1 since day one to be given the Christ treatment. Not necessarily because of its quality, however. Don't get me wrong, the game is fantastic, but it's not like the more recent Lost Crown where everyone can't stop love bombing it like it was their own little Farah-chan body pillow. The pop of '08 did have complaints, and those complaints were reasonable. But why I think the game needed, deserved, asked for a second chance more than any other underappreciated gem is that the number one complaint could have been fixed so easily. So easy, in fact, that I think that particular problem that I'm not mentioning to keep the suspense didn't even need a sequel. It could have been solved within the game itself with just a patch. Oh no! Do you feel suspensed yet? It's difficulty. The pop reboot was, and still is, heavily criticized for being too light on challenge. You just can't fail in this game, no matter how casually you play or how distracted you... Gandhi once said something else. To write the Kama Sutra, one must have enjoyed doing the sexy time first. Before I talk about how to make the game more difficult, I must talk about how much I enjoyed the easiness. See, that was the connection with the Gandhi thing. You thought I got distracted, didn't you? If you're new to the channel, the last game that I covered was Hollow Knight Silksong, and that game made my ass pucker so hard from frustration, even the Dahaka's tentacles would have been sliced off. And after a tough experience like that, the calm and relaxation I felt from Prince of Persia was welcome with open arms and asshole muscles. It's kind of difficult to explain, but even though traversal is really simple, it never feels mindless. I think the big and beefy steering wheel that keeps the gameplay on track is immersion. The world is simply wonderful to look at and also interesting.
He was gone. The Ura, used it to feed the city with water until it stopped working. By that time, the thinkers, philosophers, alchemists had all left. There was no one left to fix the machine. Since then, it's fallen into decay.
I'll talk about the world more thoroughly later, but when it comes to journeying through the land of the Ura, seeing the brilliant architecture and talking to Elika about the history of the different locales, it breathes life into the setting in a way that turns the okay, let's breeze past another easy obstacle course into wow, what a kingdom. The touches of small interactions between Elika and the prince, despite being a bit unrealistic because yeah, like you can touch a woman without getting a boner, also help to remind you how central to the game their bond is, which connects the story to the gameplay and is another layer that enhances the immersion. So when you squeeze out the boredom from easiness, the sweet and juicy residue you get from your penis is a testament to the calm, orgasmic fun the game provides. Gamers can be a bit rough on casual experiences, but there's a time and place for everything. Sometimes you want to watch a 24-hour edging challenge compilation, sometimes just a tree will do. With that profound sentiment, let's end this section and move on to making the game just a little bit more challenging. Because although I love the game and want to see it do well, would have wanted to. If tweaking the difficulty would have led to greater sales and perhaps greater acclaim, then I would have loved for it to be more challenging. If only there was some way to travel back in time. Could you imagine some device that would let you do it? Maybe a mace with a hollowed out hilt where you could store magical water, let's say. And when you release the water, time would flow backwards. That's quite a neat idea. What do you guys think? There are a lot of things that can't be reworked in a game. Bad writing, poor level design, uninspired art direction, the inability to relive the days when you felt joy. But difficulty is something that is often tweaked even after a game is released. However, to the despair of all games as a service lovers, Prince of Persia released at a time when post-launch support wasn't very common. But if it had been, I think it would have been easy to quote-unquote fix the difficulty of the game because, and I promise I'm not a secret sim for Ubisoft, the game is actually not that easy. Oops, that's just my massager. There were a decent number of times when I died during both platforming and combat, and sometimes even while just goofing around. The only problem is that you don't actually die. Your brown friend with white magic is there to save you every time. With enemies, this also restores a portion of their health. And as my ex used to say, that's not a big deal, but it's something, I guess. But when it comes to traversal, there really isn't any downside besides losing a tiny bit of your time that you'd waste on YouTube anyway. To fix this, just disable Elika's ability to save you. Sounds kind of underwhelming, but stay with me here, don't leave me, mom! The simple thing to change would be replacing the infinite save with checkpoints or borrowing the manual save points from the previous games. You wouldn't mind, right, OG Prince?
I trust no one but myself.
Mods, crush the skull, thank you.
I think a traditional save system like that would be enough to quell anyone's frustration with the difficulty of the game. But I'm not satisfied with just that. I actually am, and I think that is more reliable than what I'm about to suggest, which is going to be really out there, but I just want to share it with you guys. Is sharing your ideas that bad? Thanks. I knew you'd stay. Here, put this on.
Hey, where are you going?
So, we could continue the tradition of the Sands of Time trilogy and add
Rewind time.
to the game, but I like the distinctness of the reboot. So let's allow Elika to keep using light powers. But, sorry Ubisoft, I'm very proud of my Indian heritage, so I can't let a woman do whatever she wants all the time. Elika, your prince-saving ability will now be restricted. At first I thought we could use light seeds as the resource for this and all of Elika's abilities, but that could cause other issues like the player running out of them or their need to be shared with unlocking the power plates. So the system I concluded on is this. We give the player a fixed number of, let's call them orbs as a placeholder, every time they save at a save point. These orbs will be spent to use the power plates, perform Elika's attacks, everything. I think keeping the number of orbs you get fixed across all the save points could work, but it would be much better to individually adjust the amount according to the challenge that would follow. Now the powers would also be a reflection of the health of the land, so once the land is healed, the player will be able to use Elika's abilities without restriction. This is because I think peacefulness or chill vibes must have been part of the vision for the game. So in the healed areas, dying without orbs while collecting light seeds and having to load a save to do such a low stakes task all over again would be worse than rooting for Ubisoft's downfall. Join me. Now with regards to dying, letting the player press a button to just play the
Help step sister, I'm stuck.
animation would probably feel like a cheaper version of time reversal. So to provide more control, we're gonna change the jump extension to be a short controllable dash. Here's an example of what it would look like from a game called Mobile Legends, but with the ability to move vertically as well, of course. Look, side note, I know it's not becoming of me to play mobile games, so I apologize if you are a fake gamer and you can't handle a mobile game being good, okay? But this is just me trying to illustrate what I'm imagining in my mind. With this dash, you could fix any blunders you might make during platforming and also still fulfill all the needs of big gaping chasms. Now this system would clash with little things like enemies sometimes only being damageable by Elika or having certain places that weren't meant to be climbed up to with dash, but remember, we're far from the realistic patches now. We're trying to truly overhaul the game. We're at the next level. This is the extreme zone. Kiddos not welcome. I was always mocked by the cool kids and I still can't get over the embarrassment that... Okay, real talk, maybe all of this would have been too much to even build the game with. It would probably cause numerous other problems that I haven't thought about and maybe wouldn't even align with the overall vision of the team. But hey, the title says the game that needed just one chance, not how to fix Prince of Persia 2008. So just remove all thoughts of your homie in the shower from your brain so you have space to imagine a sequel built with light orbs and manual dashes in mind. That could have worked, In any case, like I said, I think some sort of limited save system would have been enough to blanket the complaints about difficulty. Everything else is just me overthinking about stuff to keep my mind off the ending.
The asking is yours. You know what it is that I ask.
If you would have your wish.
Then give me mine.
The other big complaint that players had for the reboot was that the ending sucked. Many defended it too, but it was controversial. But in case some viewers haven't played the game, let me give you a brief rundown of the entire story. If you don't want to be spoiled, come on, just get spoiled. It will be good for the algorithm. The game starts off with the thief, referred to as the prince on IMDb, searching for his donkey and stumbling upon Elika.
If you want something,
No. That didn't happen. May I start again?
Searching for his donkey and stumbling upon Elika, who he starts chasing like any thirsty man in the desert would. He witnesses her father, the king of the kingdom, cutting the tree of life and releasing the dark god Ahriman into the world. Later finding out that he did that to save Elika, who was actually supposed to be dead. But Ahriman's release also awakens new powers in Elika, and then her and the prince embark on an epic journey to defeat the four chosen corrupted of this dark god, again and again and again, healing the kingdom one zone at a time, till finally Ahriman is sealed. And Elika dies.
No!
And in the controversial finale, the prince undoes all the progress he made in the game so he can be with her again.
You have not done to me.
You can see why some players might have had an issue with this ending, and I somewhat agree with them. I don't hate the ending, I actually think it was say that again, but it did feel incomplete to me. When Elika died and the prince placed her body on the dining table outside the temple, the first thing I did, even as a child when I played this game for the first time, was try to leave. But that's not possible, and that impossibility feels like mission failed. It just doesn't feel right. I still think that releasing Ahriman should have been the canon ending, but we should have been given a choice between a canon and an alternate ending. Because it makes sense for the prince to do what he did, but it seems logical to expect that a lot of players would have wanted to not destroy the world. It just fits the game to have that option. You save the world and you end up right next to where you came from, and the game even provides early credits. I don't think it would even have been that much work. Just add a path near the border that you couldn't previously access, and you don't even need to be able to access it at the end. Just set a trigger for when the player approaches it, and then you can just show the prince walking away and the desert sands blowing. And if that's too much work, you could just pan the camera for one last shot of the temple with some voiceover about some grains of rice being roasted in the sand or whatever. But like I said, even if this alternate ending should have been included, the canon ending had to be what we got because the Prince and Elika story wasn't complete yet. In fact, the game wasn't really about them at all. Now, I can finally talk about what makes this game special. And not special like, wow, this is so fun. No. Playing games to have fun? Yeah, right. Having sex to come. We're going beyond simple pleasure. Forget the baby arm and take my hand. Together, let's unravel the artistry of this brilliant experience. Oh, fuck, I guess pleasure and art are more connected than I thought. For the second time this time, let's go.
You lived here? Just you and your father?
Most of the people who remained lived here. First the Vale was abandoned. The Citadel fell into decay. Then the city emptied. Only the palace remained.
Spooky place for only a few people.
Before we talk about what the game is truly about, let's talk about what the game is also about. The Prince and Elika. Their bond is the portal through which we are immersed in this world. Their story is the chair through which we sit in the class about the Ura's history. Think of it like the Lord of the Rings. Tolkien wanted to create a world with rich lore and history and culture to house his unique languages. But to let people experience that world and the languages, he needed a story.
I'm at Burger King
With my Burger Queen.
That doesn't mean that the story is not important, but that it is a vehicle for something larger. So although the true spirit of the game lies in exploring this once thriving kingdom, the vessels through which we do it also bear examining. Okay, exam starts now. The game passes with flying colors. Despite the setting being medieval or even ancient fantasy, the writers chose a more modern and casual style of dialogue for the game. And that is very difficult to do correctly, because it can easily become too juvenile and veer into the sassy cringe kind of territory. Dispatch! Sorry, had something stuck in my throat there. Dispatch's writing makes me cringe hard. I don't watch Marvel movies, but when people complain about its cringeness, I feel like this is the type of dialogue that they are talking about.
Is this your power? You're like, tell people obvious shit guy?
But Prince of Persia threads that needle like a Calvin Klein employee in Bangladesh. The banter between the prince and Elika is fantastic, and there's so much of that good stuff in here. Imagine being an addict and have your drug literally everywhere. That's what it feels like to breathe oxygen and to experience this game's dialogue. Witty comments, deep insights, sexual tension. It's all here. There are times when the casual tone feels a bit intrusive.
Elika, I am your father. I am your king.
Say, the next time you want to win your daughter back, you could try just giving her a pony. The apocalypse doesn't really cut it.
But a tongue in the ass can hardly have the same effects as a BBC. When I take it back! And the moments of intrusion aren't strong or frequent enough to bring down the experience, with plenty of fantastic serious dialogue as well.
The two of us might save this land from a god, but we aren't strong enough to stop men. Not on our own.
Where the story actually falters is with the corrupted. They're not awful, but not awesome either. Each corrupted has 4+1 zones that they guard, where you clear the 4 zones in your order of choosing based on the order you unlock the power plates in. Then have a final confrontation in the 5th zone, after which you send them to the Epstein Island. The problem this causes, as you might guess, is repetition. You fight the same fights again and again with little increase in challenge, but more anus-fuckingly, little expansion in character. The warrior feels like he was Kratos by Ahriman, but the god seems to have done right by the other corrupted. The hunter got his wish of hunting humans, the alchemist got his wish of making marvelous creations, the concubine got her wish of becoming a queen. You know what? I'm coming around to Ahriman. Maybe all his atrocities are actually propaganda like the Holocaust. Even the warrior got his wish of protecting his people. But ungrateful boulder that he is, he keeps trying to resist the C word. Yeah, he got turned into a soldier of Ahriman, but come on, you're not even going to follow the god whose power you asked for?
You're not real Mexican. Hey, you fake Mexican.
I'm kinda getting sidetracked here. Like the god of light Ormuz to abandon the Ura. Oops! I was actually talking about the lack of character development. And yeah, even though the warrior struggles, the plot point is just a point where story happens rather than a slope through which the story progresses. Where throughout the game there is little talk about his struggle.
Push him into the pillar!
But in the end we suddenly give him
An assisted suicide.
so he can die honorably while giving one last middle finger to his master.
You fought Ahriman. He died honorably.
Not that satisfying without a build-up. With the alchemist and the hunter, they are just the way they are throughout the story. With the concubine, well, they got one corrupted right. Why is she the best out of them all? Is because her story has an actual trajectory. We start off knowing that she was a lady of the court, if you know what I mean. She had sex. But she always had ambitions to rise to the top. So she succumbed to Ahriman's corruption and now sees herself as queenly as any game musician. But when the prince and Elika face her, every time she says, "Can I get a yes, queen?" she's only met with rejection. Every time she needs to hear a slay, she's met with "hoes ain't loyal." She so badly wants the prince's approval, his preference for her over Elika, she promises him everything. First out of pride, but eventually perhaps even out of fear. She's bested again and again. And when she finally realizes that she has no power over the prince and Elika, we get this fantastic scene. Silence is a rare tool in dialogue, but even when it is used, it's generally for awkwardness or romance or serenity. But when it is used to convey so many strong emotions, like sorrow, helplessness, pride, all in one, you know that the writers are something special. And that is why, even though the other villains are not that strong, including Elika's father and Ahriman himself, the game does not suffer, because the writers' wonderful talents were spent on something else. The Kingdom of the Ura. Now you'll start the game, but before you even lay eyes on the nameless kingdom, you'll notice something. The presentation. You don't need me to tell you how good the game looks. I mean, if you're just listening while trying to sleep, as every second you get more and more anxious about how you're going to wake up in time or be rested enough to face the day, only making the sleepless night worse and worse, then the game looks very good, with a timeless cel-shaded watercolor type she aesthetic. But a cool aesthetic does not a beautiful game make. Looking at the prince's design, I was a bit worried, not gonna lie. The turban and gauntlet are fantastic, but sandals? Ay 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 caramba in my bussy, that looks awful. Just give the man some "what are those?" or make him barefoot like Elika. Women need some fan service too, you know? But once I got to the temple, I knew that the devs had
Cute.
Prince of Persia has always tried to capture that exotic oriental tone, that magical vibe which tingles on our belly button when we think about the Middle East of the past. From flying carpets to carpet-munching beauties, we associate this time and place with strange magic and impossible possibilities. While the Sands trilogy also tried to capture this, they chose to keep things fairly grounded. Their version of Persia was similar to our own, but with a special
Order 69?
of magic sprinkled on top. Whereas in the reboot, they balls to the walls so hard that through the glory hole destruction, an entirely new world could be seen. And it too was glorious. I think the sights on screen will justify my view that this game isn't going to age. It's not just the ooh-ness of the architecture that makes this kingdom stand out, but also how full it feels. The traversable parts of the game are quite linear, but the background stuff is so well implemented that you can't help but feel short-kinged by the scale and grandness of the locales. The concubine and the alchemist get the most stunning vistas, with the dreamlike architecture of the former and the brilliant inventions of the latter. But even the warrior and the hunter have some interesting locations, with spots from where you can take in all the healing you have done, or ponder on the destinations you have yet to visit. They also work to shed light on some of the mundane or rougher aspects of the Ura's lives, and all the info that we get from Elika about the kingdom is the flip side to the art direction that makes this coin of an immersive world land on heads and tails at the same time. Only smart people will get that. But see, why did the "I mean it's alright" like story of most of the corrupted not bother me? It's because that space was filled by the kingdom. In place of dialogue about whether the half monster half man we're about to face might have a bad guy joining the good guys moment, Elika provides knowledge about the area, and though a lot of it is optional, I would recommend you talk to her every chance you get. And I mean really talk. If you even look at her the wrong way. Even exhausting all the dialogue, I didn't think it was enough. And although I mean it slightly as a nitpick, because some areas don't get as much extra dialogue as others, mostly I mean it in the positive sense, that I could not get enough of this world. A world that made me feel really sad, in a way. Referring to the Lord of the Rings again, there's a great sorrow when you read it. With Ents slowly headed towards extinction, with industry moving into the land, with so many heading towards the Grey Havens, we can feel the magic fading away from Middle-earth, with nature eventually to be overcome by man. I felt something similar with the Ura's kingdom. If you look around, there's no one left here. Ahriman has already ruined the land. We are healing it from corruption, but it's still dead. It's still a ruin. We're just making sure to give it a proper burial. that it may rest in peace rather than the pain of corruption. Elika mentions that the people would someday return, but she seems to be the last remaining in this kingdom by the end. With her gone, how would others even know that it was safe to return? Maybe she had hoped that the prince would spread the news. But alas, that's not what he chose. Yet in doing so, he ironically kept light magic alive in the world. Because remember, the Ura's powers had been fading away over time. It was only upon Arman's return that Elika was granted those powers. Of course, I doubt that this is a better fate for the world than keeping Arman in prison, but who knows what might have been. What might have been. That's ultimately the point of this video, no? The kingdom's story was concluded satisfyingly in the reboot, and the future had space to pursue the crumbs of the prince and Elika's relationship, with each other as well as with their own selves. The prince was experienced and resourceful, but a self-serving fellow, and with Elika he was beginning to come out of that shell. Still, his final decision was ultimately selfish, and he could have grown to cultivate a sense of humanitarian love, rather than just personal. As for Elika, she went through a lot in this game and barely had any time to process her emotions. There were also hints that she might be too conservative, seeking to destroy anything related to Arman even if it could have been repurposed for something truly good. It would have been nice to see how they learned from each other and eventually admitted their feelings for one another. The writing had been sharp and genuine so far, so I'm certain the writers would have stuck the landing. Although going by how they ended the reboot, perhaps they would have taken the story somewhere completely unexpected. The epilogue isn't available for PC, so I didn't play it, and going by the reception, I think it wouldn't really have been worth it anyway. But if it did have some important plot points, do let me know in the comments. But whatever might have been is lost to time. No, I think lost to time only makes sense if it actually happened. It disappeared like sand in a storm, but not a sandstorm, because the sand is the storm there. Fuck. Now look, gun to my head, was I a bit salty in 2008 when we got a reboot instead of something new from the Sans timeline? Absolutely not. And if you don't agree with me, we are enemies and I hate you. What's done is done. My anaconda wants something new. A great story like the Sands of Time trilogy deserves its rest. I don't need to know extra mundane stuff like how smelly the princess shit was after a trip to Chipotle. Kailina's on the other hand... Okay, I'm getting lost in the sauce. The new prince and Elika 2 deserve... Oh wait, that's not sauce. That's diarrhea! The new prince and Elika 2 deserve to have their story concluded and then laid to rest. Prince of Persia 2008 had true artistry in its creation, and a lot of its complaints could have easily been addressed in a sequel. But well, at least it eventually led to the creation of a new entry that gamers really adored, which also didn't do well, and... things aren't looking good for Prince of Persia. The Sands of Time remake looked awful the last time we saw it, but they've been working on it silently, so let's see. Ormast, please shine your light over Prince of Persia. It's very dear to me. Ormast, you're not listening, are you? You've abandoned us. Well, Arman, I pray to you. What will you take to bring back Prince of Persia? Nay, to bring back Ubisoft from the brink of collapse.
Guys, Arman says he'll see what he can do if you like and comment on this video and subscribe to the channel. Hell, the dark side. Arman's making me shill my Patreon. But I can't just plug it. I must fight. Try and do some good. The one and only patron on What Controller. A big shout out to you. May you see brighter days than the Prince of Persia franchise. Here's some motivation for you. Don't have much time. A Persian proverb for you. Don't see how small a pepper is. Break it and see how strong it is. Thank you. And bye. Bye.